I want to thank you all for being here. We want to do all that we can to ensure that the public understands the situation, and we appreciate your role in accurately reporting the facts. First, let me give you a brief history of the Refuge Ranch. This organization was created out of a desire to protect and provide refuge and healing for young women who are survivors of sex trafficking. From a single conversation in 2013 until we opened our doors in 2018, we have been committed to the health and well-being of these vulnerable young women. And thanks to the generosity of countless donors and guidance of state agencies like the Department of Family Protective Services, we broke new ground in the treatment and care of young women who have been victimized. In our history, we have helped more than 70 girls. Earlier this year, 2 crises emerged that we dealt with quickly and in full cooperation with law enforcement and state regulators. To give you a detailed overview of the 2 separate issues, I would like to turn it over to our Public Relations Director, Stephen Phoenix. Stephen.
Thank you all for coming out, and respect to your time, and for everyone's. We will be doing a Q&A at the end of this, so if you could hold your questions until then. My name is Stephen Phoenix, and I'm the Director of Communications for the Refuge, or DMST. As Brooke indicated, we're here to lay out the details of 2 separate incidents that were discovered earlier this year, including our response and the current status of both cases. It is important to understand that we are committed to maximum transparency, and we are bound by both privacy law and the fact that these incidents we're discussing are both subject to ongoing investigations and by law enforcement and state regulators. As I said, there are 2 different events in the rush to get this out to the public and through the press. We all have been mashing together separate investigations. So I want to clear that up. At the end of this, I will be providing you all with a full backgrounder. We're going to have a chronology of events. It'll also have all our policies and procedures, our background checking policies, and all the training that the Refuge staff goes through before they even come aboard. Like I said, there was 2 events. There was an exploitation event, and there was also a flight event. One of the things you're seeing in these reports is that there has been an arrest made, and there was an arrest made in the flight event, which is separate from the exploitation event. As of this morning, Bastrop County Sheriff has not made an arrest yet in that exploitation event. And we're hoping that we've been urging them all along and cooperating all along with them to make sure that they continue in that investigation. As regards to the timeline, like I said, I'll be providing all that to all of you at the end of this meeting. But do know that on January 24th, a resident of the Refuge Ranch expressed to us that she had thought some of her items had been stolen. A director on staff couldn't tell there was something more to this story, and she interviewed her, and that's when the outcry happened. The resident didn't tell us at that time that there was another friend of hers was involved. Upon hearing that, the director immediately reported that to our president, and we immediately made a call to Bastrop County Sheriffs and the Texas DFPS. So we have been, like I said, we've been cooperating with them all along. That was the 24th. On the 25th is when Bastrop County Sheriffs and DFPS showed up, and we've been working with them ever since. That is, again, all in this timeline, which I hope to share with you. Then the flight event, though, is a bit more. I mean, both incidents are sensitive because it deals with traumatized youth who have been, we have to protect their confidentiality. The flight event is a little more trickier, and we will not be able to discuss much of that. But what I can tell you is that we had a girl in our care who was a federal witness, and because of her fears about the upcoming trial, she did leave the refuge. We believe that some of our staff helped participate in that. Homeland Security and others came in to help in that investigation. and they actually confronted those staffers. One of them lied directly to a federal officer, and that is the one charge that has been filed at this point. That is all we have, regarding any sort of arrest. So I just want to make sure that's clear, and that we want to do more going forward. Anyway, in both cases, we were responding immediately to the notification of these problems, and we immediately notified law enforcement, then terminated the perpetrators for cause. We continue to cooperate with law enforcement and state regulators to bring this perpetrator to justice. We're here to answer your questions on both these two incidents.
Can you give a little more clarification on the case for the flight? Because you did mention, hey, that's the one that there's been an arrest. What about the narrative can you share? Was this a female or male employee that helped this young girl in your care to escape?
Female, and again, for her safety, she is involved in a very serious trial, and that's why she's in that federal program. So there's very little I can offer on that. I would, if for further comment, I would suggest going to the FBI on that. They'll be able to give you what comment they are able to give.
Can you say how many employees were involved with that flight?
There were 3 employees that were involved with that, and they've all been terminated immediately.
How quickly after their termination were they removed from active status with the Refuge?
How immediately?
Immediately.
Immediately.
We found state records that show that there were inspections and investigations in the past with regard to how quickly terminated employees were inactivated. Can you speak to those past compliance history with the Refuge, with the FPS and HHSC?
I'm not sure what things you're referring to. All I can tell you is that we take the safety and well-being of our girls very seriously. Our staff goes through all the required background checks by state and federal standards. You'll see in later information that they go through extensive training and extensive oversight within the first few months of their training. So if ever we find out that there is an incident of question, staff, with due diligence, but in fairness to them, but immediately they are terminated. So I don't know what you're referring to, but I can tell you that has always been our policy.
So the staffer who was fired, that was a woman that helped one of the girls in your care leave the facility because she was concerned about the upcoming trial?
Actually, in both instances, all the staff were fired. For the exploitation example, we fired the obvious perpetrator on that immediately. There were other concerns that some of her family members might be involved in that as well. But Bastrop County Sheriff cleared all 3 of them, and they remained on staff at that time. I believe one of those,
So they were cleared in early January and they remained on staff until when?
Until the run incident, and then they were in question, investigated, and immediately terminated.
So in the court document, when it said that several intake received, so they received 8 intakes, all alleging human trafficking, and then they discovered several additional staff still employed at the operation. Those were the employees that were cleared.
I believe so.
Okay.
Was just one employee involved with the exploitation?
Yes.
Yes, and that is the employee that's currently under investigation with the Bastrop Sheriff, and again, there has been no arrest.
Is there a girl that's in danger right now? Has she been recovered or found? Or is she out there?
Yes.
The flight, yeah,
The flight,
absolutely. She is in
has,
federal
yes.
custody now, or not custody is the wrong word. She's in federal care right now.
Yes.
So when did the flight incident occur?
I haven't included that in my timeline. Do you aware of the approximate date on that?
I'm not, but I believe it was in early February, and I don't know the exact date. Again, questions around that incident, really, we want to be very careful because this is a very sensitive case for this child. And so while we're going to do all we can to be as transparent with you and give you all the facts and keep you up to date as much as we can, there's some things that we don't want to jeopardize her safety. And so facts sometimes can be jeopardizing. So that's why we're not trying to be evasive.
Sure. So how many staffers have been fired in total in connection with these 2 events?
My understanding in connection with these two events, there are 4 that have been fired.
Okay, so what was the number that was being talked about in the hearing yesterday about, it was either 7 or 9 that were involved?
That is, again, mashing together several investigations there. Those other investigations are, I don't know other way to put this, a nuisance campaign put on by disgruntled ex-employees.
Really, what happens is that we're not sure why they came up with 7, frankly, but I think it was because the 2 issues were being conflated. They were being mashed together, and we did look into different staff that could potentially be involved, and so perhaps that's where some of those numbers came from, because some staff we weren't sure of, so they were being investigated by DFPS as well.
So it's your position that there's no connection between these 2 events, they're completely separate? Was the overlap between staff involved in one with the other at all?
That is a good question. I said Bastrop County Sheriff cleared them, and we did as well as initially. I think we'll find out more, as DFPS, law enforcement, and now Texas Rangers look into this.
When something like this happens, what is your chain of command as far as alerting the next level of law enforcement? Do you go straight to the sheriff, or do you go to DFPS? Like, how does that work?
Immediately to the Department of Family Protective Services. By law and by our regulations, through our licensing commitment, we immediately, when there's an incident on our property, we are required to report it to DFPS. We've required every incident since we opened in 2018. And I think if you look at our track record, we actually have a very strong track record since 2018. Yes, these 2 events happened this year. We are devastated that they did, because we take every measure possible to protect the girls in our care, because these girls are worth protecting. They're the most vulnerable in our society. And so for this to have happened, we are heartbroken. We are also grateful that the girls felt safe enough to make an outcry on our property, because I will tell you that these employees had passed all background checks, and we know that perpetrators usually have a history, and so our guess is that perhaps we've put a stop to something. We just know that for this to have happened, we've put new measures in place, because the fact that they were able to infiltrate and get in, even with all of the things that we have in place, we've put in new safety and background checks from third parties above and beyond what state and federal requirements are, so that this will never happen again.
What's next for the shelter? Are you guys going to be able to reopen, or are you open?
Once everything is cleared, we fully intend to open again.
But just because you've covered us before, we've had girls there since 2018. On Wednesday, when DFPS decided, and we agreed with that, because of course they were just inundated with calls. They had no idea what was going on. They did their job. They came and removed our girls, one by one, throughout the day. We didn't know that was going to happen until we woke up that morning. And I will tell you that as every girl left, none of them wanted to leave. They were all weeping. Case managers came. They were doing their job. But as every girl left, we stopped them and we looked them in the eye and we said, we love you and we will never stop fighting for you. And our goal is to get you back here where you belong, because we are a family. We want to continue to take care of you. So, but before that even happened on Wednesday, because these 2 events had happened, we had decided to take a pause for the month of March and evaluate every single aspect of our recruiting and hiring and training process. Again, for the very reason that we never want this to happen again.
Was there ever a question before this week of removing the girls sooner, when these investigations were cropping up in January and February?
To our knowledge, we had not been told that, but we weren't told that was going to happen on Wednesday. So that's a question, I think, for other people, that we had not been told anything about that.
And DFPS removed the girls, but were all of the girls under DFPS care at that time? Because you guys also take in cases outside
Correct.
DFPS.
Yeah. One was a private placement, and the other one was from another state. And they're all gone.
The
What-
court documents mention a higher level residential care supervisor who may have been aware of some of these allegations going on. Can you all speak to that? Was it beyond just these 4 staffers that we're talking about?
Well, you gotta understand, I mean, that's who the girls reported it to. So she knew immediately and she reported immediately. That's her job. That's why she's on our campus. And so, of course, she didn't know about it ahead of time. The day that it was reported to her, January 24th, that was the day that staff member was terminated, and records will show that as the day that we reported it to the Department of Family Protective Services.
You talked about employees, all the employees passing background checks. Can you talk about how many employees were employed at your facility and all of them passed background checks?
Oh, yeah. Every single person that works in our organization, not just the ones at the Refuge Ranch, but any of us that work not in direct care, we all go through background checks and training.
So how many were at the ranch?
I don't know at the time how many were at the ranch because we have 24/7 around the clock care, and so at any one time we could have 20 employees, we could have 45 employees. We don't ever stop taking care of these girls. It's 24/7. So I can't tell you exactly how many were at the Refuge at that time.
How many are on the staff?
At the Refuge Ranch, I believe right now there are 36, but we'll have to get that exact number to you.
What kind of describe to me the girls that are there? Are they young kids? Are they up to 15, 16-year-olds? And what all do they go through as far as the schooling there, that sort of services?
Yeah. So the average age that a girl comes to us is between 14 and 15, and usually they've already had severe trauma for years and years and years. Likely, when they've been rescued and identified as a trafficking victim, and they come to the Refuge, this has been going on for a while because they've been groomed and they've been trafficked and traumatized for many years. So what we do is we provide on-site services that they need in order to access to heal. And sometimes they're with us for a month. Very rarely is it just a month. Usually, on average, they're with us 9 months to a year. And we have an on-site charter school that is run by the University of Texas Charter School. So the girls immediately get back on track with their education. We've had 7 girls get her high school diploma. We've had 4 girls be accepted to college. And they also have access to different therapies. So we have equine therapy. We have art therapy. Of course, we have therapy for the trauma. And we also have medical care and psychiatric care in partnership with local doctors and psychiatrists who work for us, are contracted with us. And so we surround these girls with the very best care. It's very comprehensive care. It's very costly care. But of course, these girls are worth it. And we have these resources to bring to them to help them heal. So that's what we do at the Refuge Ranch. Girls walk in our door scared, afraid. Sometimes it takes 3 to 4 months for them to start to feel safe, but they start to feel safe. That's why when the girls were being pulled out of our property on Wednesday, they were crying, saying, "Don't take me. Don't take me from my family. I finally feel safe." These are things that they were saying. And so, of course, for us, that is re-traumatizing girls that were feeling safe at the Refuge. I don't think girls that live with us are in harm. I will say, though, that this incident, of course, has just made us so heartbroken and so aware that there are people, even in a place like the Refuge that is safe and secure, that can infiltrate with evil intent. And so we're doing all we can to make sure that that never happens again.
So I'm a little bit turned around just by the description of the timeline here, and maybe it'll clear it up when we take a look at the document. But I've got the court filing here. So this says there was an intake from January 24th saying a current Refuge employee contacted intake saying there were 2 youth and that a former employee had sold nude pictures of them to procure drugs and alcohol and provided that to them. That is what was reported to you guys at that time. That's what you're referring to?
They,
The exploitation?
Yes. So this was of 2 youth in your care.
Correct.
yeah, and
Okay.
some reports have said like 7 and 9. There's only,
Two.
So that was the initial incident, and then it says from the 6 weeks on from there, between 124 and 34, statewide intake received 8 intakes, all alleging human trafficking by the former employees. That would presumably refer to the person you fired right away when you heard about this.
Well, that's a good question. We're not sure. It could have been the one that we fired that day. It could have been another employee prior. We don't know.
Yeah, they
they
can
don't
keep that
tell
They
confidential.
haven't
us.
shared the details of the allegations.
They
that were
they
made.
can never. DFPS can never report or share who calls in state mandated reporting of any type of allegation.
But they don't share who the allegations were against, so you don't know if it was against the person you fired or if it was against other staff.
I believe the court under Justice Jack that she's going to be asking for all of that today. I mean, I believe she was mandated. I can't speak for her office at all, but I believe she's requested all that, and I believe that will come out in their official documents.
And then just to clear one last thing up, this says DFPS learned the operations residential care director, who had heretofore appeared cooperative throughout the investigation, now appeared to have prior knowledge of the alleged sexual abuse. You're saying you don't think that's accurate?
Absolutely not. No. I think the moment she was, there was an outcry made to her, she reported it.
Do we know how many of the girls received the drugs and alcohol? Like if it was, pictures that were taken and sold in order to get the drugs and alcohol and pass that out? Were all of the girls
It was
involved in
just
that?
it was just those 2. Yes.
Okay.
And so just another clarifying question. So the employee that was fired in January after the exploitation event is different than the employee who has been arrested
Correct.
for the 2 separate incidents.
Be-
Are you all going to share any names of the employees that have been terminated as part of this investigation?
I would need to talk to legal counsel on that. And people are innocent until proven guilty. So that's, some of that is out of our hands. And like I said, I think you'll see a lot of that within what is revealed in the Justice's court.
Another question, we're hearing from some families who are hearing about some of these details for the first time, loved ones of the girls. What is the process like for notifying family and loved ones, their contacts outside of the refuge of these events?
In the exploitation instance and the flight instance there, we immediately contacted their case manager. Sometimes these children are in a conservatorship, and they're wards of the court. So that's part of that, mandated reporting. Let them know that their ward has had an incident on our property, and so it's either immediately to the parent or the case manager. Sometimes there's probation officers involved and law enforcement, et cetera. But yeah, we're in open communication with all of them. I mean, absolutely as fast as possible. Also, with both these incidents, I believe DFPS, requires like a 12-hour reporting time on everything. We were almost immediate.
And was there sexual abuse connected with the flight incident?
No. Gotcha. So we do have a lot of work ahead of us. I promise you all we were going to cooperate with everything y'all need on this, and you all have my email and phone number, and any follow-up questions you have, I will get to you ASAP. We do like to wrap this up so we can get to work. I do have a concluding statement from Brooke, and then we'd like to adjourn.
Yeah.
Actually, hold it. One more. Do I have one more question? I know someone might have a vital one.
Are these girls in foster care right now?
It's a mixture. Well, you mean after they left us?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it depends.
You
We-
don't know?
We don't know because the case managers didn't know when they were picking them up. So our goal, though, is to keep track of them as much as possible. And our hope is that when we get past this and we have the investigations done, that when we open back up, they'll be able to come back to the refuge and continue their care. So many were doing just so remarkably well. So, we remain committed to first taking all the necessary steps to comply with the investigators, to help them find out what they need to know, to work with law enforcement, and make sure that we have the internal controls necessary so that this never happens again. But I really want to thank you all for being here because, frankly, these stories need to be told. I mean, right now we have thousands of kids in our state and thousands more across our country that are being trafficked every single day. And so we've only taken care of 70 girls to date. There's so many children that need places like the Refuge to operate and to care for them. And we all have a part to play in that. And so by bringing light to this, you have opportunity to tell the story of these most vulnerable kids in our care. And together with regulators, with legislators, with law enforcement, our organization and other organizations like ours, the much needed help that these kids need, we can do that. We can do that together. So I want to thank you all for coming and helping get the story out there. I just wanted you all to know that we are committed to the transparency of this whole process. We'll continue to keep you informed as we can under legal guidelines and structures. And there's a battle over the lives of these kids, and they are worth the fight. And we're going to continue to battle, and we will continue to being a voice for these girls, and we'll continue to do all we can to care for them. So thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you.